All right, everybody, welcome to the Relevant Recruiter Show. I've got an awesome guest today, my friend, fellow alumni from the University of Nevada. Everybody, welcome Corey Jackson to the show. Corey, welcome, man. Glad to have you on today, man.
Hey, appreciate you to have me, man. Good to be here.
Awesome. So Corey and I both played football at University of Nevada. Corey was also a basketball player there, and he was on his way out when I was on my way in, and he was on to some bigger and better things than I was at that point. And Corey had a little stint in the NFL. Man, tell us about that journey.
Oh man, it was crazy. I was a basketball player, like you said, and was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to play football at the University of Nevada. Didn't want to go to Europe to play basketball. I wanted to really play at the highest level, and I thought the NBA was going to be it. Didn't happen. Got a chance to play at University of Nevada a little bit, and crazy thing, man. Like didn't expect anything out of it. Went to pro day, had a workout at pro day, and my life changed. Scouts just like, man, you're big, you're fast, you're strong. Like we could teach you how to play football.
Yep.
And so that singular experience really changed my life in a huge way because it gave me an opportunity to see the world in a different way,
Yep.
see business in a different way, see branding at the highest level, marketing at the highest level, things that I use today. Those experiences and understandings help me in my business right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I can imagine that, and really looking forward to kind of you sharing your journey. But going back into the NFL, I mean, who was the first organization that gave you a shot?
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns, man. I got hit up by the Cleveland Browns on draft day. The defensive line coach, Andre Patterson, he's a phenomenal defensive line coach. He's actually defensive line coach at Minnesota right now.
Okay.
He has a great eye for talent. He loves long, wiry defensive ends, and I fit the description, super athletic, things like that.
Right.
And, they came and I signed right away, so it was
Yep.
amazing. And then I stayed there for like 2 years, 2.5 years, and then ended up going to Denver, which once again, Andre Patterson, he moved on to Denver and he thought that I would be a good fit there. And ended up going to Denver and being there and ended my career there. Actually didn't know my career was ending there because got a few injuries. You guys know if you play sports or play football at any level, injuries are something that can always set you back. But came out of it, with a lot of valuable lessons and opportunities and relationships and things of that nature to kind of further my career along in different ways and different paths.
Yeah. What are some of those? I know for me, being playing just college ball and sports in general, there's so many life lessons that we learn, from that, alone. That I know for me, I use a competitive advantage in my business every day. But what are some of the biggest lessons you learned playing in the NFL?
I mean, it's the simplest things, right? And so I used to have things like my coach used to say all the time, and you probably heard this over and over again, the less you see, the more you see, right? And so you take entrepreneurship, it holds true, right? Like, so when you playing football, if I'm the defensive end, because I play defensive end, if I'm trying to see everything on the field, I'm gonna see less of what I'm really supposed to see, right? And where I'm
Yeah.
really supposed to be focusing and where I'm really supposed to be honing in at. And so it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. It's like you have to see, there's so much going on. There's so much you can do. You can apply this tool, you can use this software, you can do all these things, right? And you can be distracted by it because you're trying to see everything in the market versus just focusing on your core business and saying, at the end of the day, it's sales, right? I have
Right.
to make a sale, I have to do a deal, I have to figure out how to bring value and drive value. And as long as I stay focused on those fundamentals, I'm going to be okay. And then it can lead me to other things as well. But that was one of the things that I use every day,
Right.
because you can get really bombarded with a lot of things as an entrepreneur.
Right. Do your 111. Do your 111. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is the chasing the shiny object syndrome, right? That keeps so many people back. And when you stay in your lane and you work your strategy and you do, hone in on that craft, that's when you really become, kind of an expert in your space and things like that.
Absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Now I know you've got it's Qwerkz, right? That's the name of the company you have now, right?
Yes, Qwerkz.
Yeah. So what inspired that? I mean, tell us a little bit about Qwerkz and how you got there.
Yeah. So basically what we do is we partner athletes with either brands or companies, right? And so a lot of athletes want to work with brands, and just to kind of give you a real view of the type of athletes, it's not about the superstar athletes. It's just the average athlete, maybe even an athlete you may walk past on the street and may not even know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we partner them with brands and companies that they want to work with. And so on the recruitment side, it was really interesting. I started getting a lot of my former teammates and guys that I knew just asking me questions about, how do you get into the market and what makes sense for them, and even things about entrepreneurship and all those things. And what I started to see was this huge disconnect between how athletes leverage their experiences and their skill sets and how they actually work with companies, or how they get jobs, or how they start careers, or the things they access. It was really interesting. So I started having conversations, not just with the athletes, but with companies. And fortunately, I'm able to speak to multi-billion-dollar companies and literally like show up and say, hey, what do you think about this? And how do you look at athletes? And how do you view that? And then I started explaining to them some of the real essential things and the experiences of an athlete that really would drive value to your culture and value to your processes and some of the things you're doing, especially specifically in the sales and marketing space. And so that's kind of how I got into it. Just kind of fell into it, just having conversations with former teammates and other athletes, and then just started kind of mapping that to the companies and saying, hey, let's have these conversations and see how we can make something make sense.
Right. Did you have like a specific aha moment? Because obviously I think you're solving, I mean, I'm not a professional athlete, but just looking at it, there's so many guys that come into the league. The league is not for long, right? And not just the league, anywhere, any type of professional sport. Like there's always the next batch coming to take your job. But what point did you have like an epiphany? Like there's a massive need for this, for players that I can, fill this market void.
Yeah,
Have a moment on that?
I think on both sides, not even just the players, the companies as well. I mean, you look at the market right now. Obviously, there's a huge fight for talent. Unemployment is super low. People are looking for unique talent, trying to figure out how to get the best talent possible. And so I saw that as well, and that the athletes and saying, hey, you guys are underselling yourselves and you need a better story, right? And you need a better way to tell the story, because your experiences are very valuable, but they also map to certain industries, and your skill sets is definitely transferable. And so just kind of seeing that and understanding that, it's really about how you deliver that message. And then also, like, if you think about like your environment as an athlete, your environment is super energetic, right? Like you're always like encouraging each other. You always kind of having these friendly competitions. And so think about your culture as a company, and you having this type of energy inside of your company, and you have this type of understanding of how we work together, and how like my job as a defensive end is twofold, right? It may be times where I get a lot of glory, right? I mean, to get in the backfield, hit the quarterback, but it may a lot of times, Donnie, I'm taking on two blockers, man.
Yep.
I gotta hold this blocker, and I know I gotta hold these two blockers so my linebacker can scrape, get free, and make the tackle, and I don't get nothing in the stat book, right? And so there's things about being an athlete the sacrifices you make for your teammates, the sacrifice you make for your organization, that is just super transferable to most industries for sure. And so we highlight a lot of those things so that these companies can understand it. And fortunately, we get to speak to a lot of CEO level individuals as well. And most of them play sports at some level. Maybe not at the pro level, but a lot of them play at the collegiate level for sure.
Right. Now, did you notice like from the talent pool of the actual athlete, like was there a disconnect with like really the value that they bring to the table that they're not presenting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you think about some of the real intricate things that someone would look for in bringing a new hire on, I think when you think about the simple things like how to be persuasive, right? You wouldn't even think about like how does that work, and how do you figure out that from being a professional athlete, right?
Right.
So there's so many situations where we have to actually sit down with our coaches, our position coaches, and actually persuade them to do certain things or do certain plays or put them in certain positions or give you certain opportunities. And so it's always happening. And then also the pressure, right? Like, how do you deal with pressure? How do you deal with expectations? And then how do you actually do that in front of a large audience of people every day? You know?
Right.
And so like those are valuable things that happen that you can directly show companies that, hey, this is why this particular athlete could be a great asset for your company. And to be really clear, it's not about just because you're an athlete, it's about you as the unique athlete. Like, what is it about Corey, right? Like, so we have to dig deep into the thing, right? Like, it's not saying, oh, I played in the NFL, so I could do anything. It's like, no, there's very specific things about me that will make me great at certain things. And that's what we do for the companies, help them see that. And then the athletes, we help them see that as well. And it's amazing when they can see that. It was like, oh, wow, like I can be great again. You know,
that's exactly. Yeah. I can go transfer. Exactly. So do you find yourself working more with, you know, kind of the elite stars, or kind of, you said earlier that, you know, a lot of the guys you're working with are more of the, you know.
Yeah, I think it's more the average athlete, and it makes sense, right? Because the average is the greater pool of the athletes anyway, right?
Yep.
And typically, if you have brand recognition at a high level, you're going to be doing certain things that you know, don't require us, because you can be on Fox, right? And you can
go drink a Sprite and get paid $90 million a year.
Exactly, right? And so that's a whole different lane. But if you think about the average guys that come out, you know, like I said, the people that know them may be in their hometown or maybe in their collegiate town, but they don't have the mass appeal, but they have great skill sets and experiences that make sense for these companies and organizations.
Nice. Now, what do you feel like the biggest disconnect was from the client side, from the company side? What were some of the things you're still seeing, you know, of their perception of athletes?
The money, right? Like, everybody's like, well, what are these guys expecting to get paid? You know?
Yeah.
One of the things we do a really good job of is helping companies understand that, you know, our athletes want to see a path to the top, right? It's not about like starting, you know, at the highest possible position. It's saying, hey, listen, I know I have the tools and abilities, and I have the work ethic, so I know I'm going to do that.
Right.
You know, I just need to be able to know that your company can provide me the opportunity to get here.
Right.
And that's what we help them understand, because a lot of times companies don't know. They just think that athletes are going to come in and just expect that, let's, you know, get a seat at the table without having to do all the work. And that's not the case. Like, we clearly talk about how we just want to have a position to start, to show like you can get to the top if you work really hard from here. And I think that's really the goal for us overall, is to continue to have those conversations, because a lot of companies don't know that. You know, they think like you guys just want to come in and get a job and not earn
and be a CEO right away or something.
Yeah. And so you know, like we put that work ethic up against anybody, because we know like the type of clients that we have, and we know that they're hungry, and we know that they're looking for greatness. I think it's something that, even if you take my career, for instance, you know, as a professional athlete, you know, I had a lot of potential and I had a lot of opportunity, but also my career got cut short by injury, and I didn't achieve a lot of things that I wanted to achieve on the athletic level. And so when you look at it from entrepreneurship and business, like, I'm insane. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna hit all these targets and I'm gonna go hard as possible, because I don't have to deal with physical pain. I don't have to deal with 120-pound offensive lineman. I don't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you take that mindset and you interject it into the next thing, and that's what we help companies understand. Like, these guys are bringing their mindset, and mindset is, you know, everything.
100%. Yeah, you know, and again, just being an athlete, I've always kind of taken my approach, and me being more of a walk-on, I've always been on an uphill grind, right? I've always had to prove somebody wrong. I've always had to, you know, break through a mold, and I take the same mentality with my business. And that's one of the biggest things I think that is a competitive advantage of mine, is that I'm just willing to go. I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to go to where I need to go, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a huge competitive advantage, especially when you're willing to like do the ugly stuff. Right. Yeah. Like, so like literally, like, I have to do like the grind. Like, I have to like talk to like every company, get all the no's, the no return emails, the you know, set up the meeting, they don't show up, you know, I have to do all of that. And I think that, you know, when you understand that this is just what it is, like, a lot of people don't know that's the game. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Like, that's the real game. Like, can you do all of this stuff, go through all of this, difficult emotional stuff, because it's really just emotional, right? Like it's the emotional stuff that come with being an entrepreneurship, and keep going, and keep putting in all out effort, and not lose that enthusiasm that it takes to actually come back every day. And that's what we do, because we understand that, otherwise we're going to be like everybody else, like
exactly.
We don't want that.
Exactly. How do you feel like, how long have you been doing Qwerkz now? I know like at least 3 years.
Well, yeah. So we started on the branding side a couple of years ago, and on the specific executive recruiting side a year.
Okay.
Just that a year.
And how do you feel like the impact, that you've made on the market? Like, what are you proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, I mean, it's so big out here. We have, athletes that are, anywhere from Major League Baseball to soccer players in Germany. And, we have this wide range of individuals that we're able to access and offer opportunities to. I think just really how we built the company out is really about opportunities. Like that's what I'm proud of, because at the end of the day, it's about accessing opportunities and giving people access to opportunities. And I think, when you look at athletes in general, like, so when I was in the league, or my buddies in the league, we're always getting access because people wanted things from us, right? Like, right. And it was just amazing. Like, people would call and like just with some random stuff, like, hey, I need $2,000. You know what I mean? Like, just on some random things. And so I think like building my company out to be able to serve athletes is just a fantastic feeling, because a lot of the individuals that we work with understand, like, we've been over leveraged for a very long time.
Right. People are constantly taken.
Yeah, for sure. And so now it's, having a company that's all about them and serving them is a really cool thing.
Yep. Now it sounds like you're not doing like traditional, a lot of the clients that I work with, your traditional headhunter, recruiter, or search, firm they're basically making that connection, but it sounds like you're doing a little bit more grooming with the talent prior to passing them on. Is that the case?
Yeah. So a lot of things that we have to do is based in a lot of assessments, kind of understanding who they are, because we have to paint the picture to be able to tell the story and be able to sell the athletes to the company. So it's a lot of work to that, because it's not just as simple as, hey, let's put this resume together, make sure it's really good, and get it in front of them and give you some interview training and things like that. It's like,
right.
Like your resume may have a lot of holes in it because you didn't do anything other than like maybe your summer job when you was in high school, or like,
yeah.
And so it's a lot more, a lot of more work, and we have to, bring things together and help companies use their imagination a little bit to see kind of how all these things work.
Yep. Got it. Yeah. What are some, you have a funny or interesting story you can share with us about, on either side of it, from the client side or the candidate side of things?
I don't know if I have a real funny story off the top of my head, but I think what's really interesting is just kind of the mentality that like, companies have, like I said, when it comes to the expectations. I was meeting with one company, and they were just like, it was like, they were super excited, but it was like, well, we don't know if we can pay these guys this type of money, like, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But it's just kind of that idea when you kind of get in a room with a professional athlete,
right.
You're thinking like it's a lot of money involved.
Right.
And the big thing that we do, and I think is really cool, is we help athletes understand, like, don't think about the money. And I know that's like a hard thing to do.
Of course.
But what makes you win in life is when you can remove that and say, I would do that for anything, right? Like I would get up every day and do that thing right there. And so we try to help them understand that, like how to remove like the salary. Like, don't think about that, because what happens is if you become really great at what you do, you're going to make a lot of money. Like that's just, it always holds true, right?
Yep.
And so we try to do a good job of helping them think that way. But yeah, it's just companies thinking like this crazy money going to be, I'll have to pay these guys crazy amount of money. So I don't know if I, want to do that. And guys are really smart, and they're like, no, man, like I just want to pass to the top. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll take care of the rest.
Yeah. Well, it's helping them understand that like it's no different than the sport that they're playing, where you're really just honing your craft. Your craft's just different now.
Yeah, you have to start. You have to start from the top. Like when I came in, and I signed my first contract, yeah, I was on the team, but like I had to do everything, like I had to do all the scout team, all the special team. I had to do, like you had to really go through the process, right?
Yep.
So it's so funny because it's so relatable to athletes and they understand it. They're like, man, I know like this is how football was. We had to go through these channels to earn the right to say I'm a starter and, I don't have to do this or I don't have to run down on special team. You have to
Yep.
earn. You don't get that just out like just because.
Yep.
Even if you was a 5-star recruit, like you have to come and like earn your stripes, like, and that's just how it is. And so it's all these things that helps us tell the story for these companies so they can understand the correlation between, sports and how the locker rooms are and how athletes work. Like I was at a company, they're like about 5 billion in revenue, and their campus was like so much like a sports facility.
Right.
They even had like basketball hoops and all these things, and then how the setup was and everything. And I was helping them understand like this is very similar to kind of how we operate as athletes. And so it's not a huge culture shock when you make that flip.
Right.
It's very similar.
Yeah, those big companies can certainly pamper you because they don't want you to ever leave. Just like when you're an athlete, they don't want you to ever leave, right?
Exactly. So and I'll tell you this, man. Like it's a lot of big company. Like so when I was in the league, it was 32 teams. You feel me? Like 32 teams. That's it, man. Out here, it's so many huge companies I never heard of before.
Yep, they're huge.
I mean, like I'm like, man, how is this company this big? I never heard of them before.
Yeah.
But it's like global companies that we get to kind of meet with and talk with every day, and I never heard of them. It's crazy.
Yep. Now, what are you doing I know you have a podcast out there as well, but what are you doing to educate kind of the client market on, some of the things we've talked about with athletes? Are you doing anything on the forefront, or is that all kind of happen on the phone and through presentation?
Yeah, we took the approach that, we do very little marketing, if any, because one, fortunately, we have an opportunity to get really great introductions. And so we have a pretty cool network that we can leverage and access. And so we've been able to take advantage of that. I think as we kind of grow and scale out, we're going to start kind of taking different approaches. But right now we're still in the trenches. So a lot of it is just saying, hey, we're going to allocate this amount of money to our talent, and we're going to allocate this much to, whatever services or products we need. And then we're just going to go full-fledged and do hand-to-hand combat,
Yep.
And that's been our mentality. And hopefully when we look up here in the next 90 days or so, we're going to be even closer to a lot of the goals that we're trying to smash.
Got it. And what's kind of the big vision for this company? I mean, what are you trying to do with this, with this brand?
Yeah. So we understand that like it's all about where you start. So you have to start somewhere. And the biggest need we saw was, connecting athletes with opportunities, meaningful opportunities, things they care about. But eventually we'll be able to connect them to anything, whatever they're looking for. And then we'll be able to scale up and we'll be able to work with some of the larger athletes and brands as well. But I think the biggest thing for us is understanding like if we get really, really good at what we're doing, then we can start adding bits and pieces of other things that they need, and it can be anything from a mortgage. It could be anything from, coaching or, this all these different things that we can add inside of this community to be able to add value to all of the athletes and help them get better and better at what they're trying to do.
Right. Now, what would you say if you kind of look back, and even though you're still just kind of really a year onto this thing pushing, but in this first year, like what do you look back and wish you would have known, if we were to rewind last year's beginning of 2019 to where you're at now, what's one thing you wish you would have known?
Well, I think, when you're starting something, you only can go with what you know, right? And so I think one of the things that I did early on was I worked with recruitment firms to help us get access to more companies, which was a great experience because what I learned was we don't need to work with them, and the reason why was because it was a traditional method of what they were doing,
right,
that really didn't fit our audience. And so they couldn't sell our athletes like we can, right? And that's really the bottom and top of it, right? And so for them, they're like, well, we need to see this on the resume, and we need to see that. And it's like, well, we don't have that, right? And so it was a lot of like disconnect there. But that experience taught us to say, hey, we have to go and speak for ourselves and have the high level conversations about why this makes sense. And so it goes past, so we got hung up on a lot of things, HR generalists and just, kind of getting stuck in between. And we was like, no, we're going straight to the top. Yep. And so we use different strategies. We look for companies that are big on, diversity, right? And obviously the word diversity is not just, one thing. It's a lot of different things. And so we can say, hey, we have a lot of different ways to show that we could fit into that diverse box that you guys are looking to invest in. And so you should work with us. And so we had to get more creative for sure. But initially, it was like, we're just going to work with the people that's working with the companies, and everything's going to be great. And it didn't go that way.
No, I think that's huge though, man, because so many people in that position where they get pressed on of like, no, this is how we do it, then they usually conform. Where really the big opportunity is when you don't conform, you say, I understand what you're talking about, but this is the way now, right? This is the way we're going to do it, because that's what builds a brand. That's like putting the flag in the ground and saying, hey, like, I believe in this. This is why we do it this way. And that's how you're remembered, where when you just kind of conform, then you're just, in their eyes, you're like, okay, cool. Well, you're just another recruiter to me.
And and people want things that are interesting, right? Like, like it's really an interesting story, an interesting background. I think that, and we understand from a realistic standpoint where we are in the market too, right? Mm-hmm. And so there are certain positions that you have to have a certain type of experience for, right? Like you have, like there's certain, if you're a specialist in something, like it has to be that. But there's other things that you can show and compensate for and show like, hey, these things apply. And maybe we need a little bit of training in this area, but you take this mindset and these talents and abilities and apply it there, it's going to be great. And we see it happening over and over. And so we keep ramping up our goals because we say, well, that worked, so let's keep doing more of that.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I love that. What do you, you're in now, what are you most excited for in the future with this business?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's happening for us right now is we're starting to get inbound on the company side, like just a lot of curiosity, like, hey, what's going on? And, and like in the beginning, the legwork was more like outreach. And you know how that is, right? Right. That outreach process is, you're introducing yourself, trying to get people to know you, understand what you do. And it's a grind. I mean, it's just a lot of work and a lot of emotional toll from all of the no's, right? Yeah. But I think when you start to see that inbound, you start seeing people inquiring about what you're doing, that you're on the right track.
Yep, I love it. Who would you say are like the three most influential people, on this journey or just in life in general that have kind of given you the confidence to become an entrepreneur and do something? I mean, it's really huge for, the athletic community, right? Seeing somebody like yourself, like, yeah, you're helping them get a job, but also you are the job, you're the entrepreneur. I mean, who would you say the three most influential people are?
Man, I tell you, life is funny. It's hard for me to pinpoint like people, but like things, right? Like things that happened to me. So I was horrible in school, right? Like literally barely could read when I got out of high school, like just really tough. And my guidance counselor said, I was like, I want to go college. My guidance counselor was like, no, you need to go somewhere else, but college is not it, right? Like that ain't the thing. And so I always remember that because I believed him when he said it. And so I ended up working at Walmart when I graduated high school. And I did that for like a year. And I was like, this ain't it, but that experience made me go do something so far out of the box. It made me buy a one-way bus ticket to a college I didn't enroll in, didn't apply for, didn't have a scholarship for, didn't even know if I can get in and get on a two-day bus ride and show up and, walk into the gym and dunk on three people. And the coach is like, who the heck is this guy? Like we want him on the team. Like it made me do things that forced me to have entrepreneurial behavior. I think like when you don't get picked in life and you start to realize you can pick yourself, like that is when you become an entrepreneur. Yeah. Like I think it's that moment, like the moment I got on that bus, that was it. Life changing. You're
creating.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I was in control, yeah, like that, that situation couldn't have worked out, but I knew I could always get on a bus and go, and I think it's the same thing, every day as we get up and do this grind. And a lot of you that are watching, you're in control. Like I used to want to get picked. Now I'm like, the power is in the person that's doing the picking, like I don't need to get picked anymore. Like I pick the companies I want to work with. I pick the athletes I want to work with. I pick the employees I want to hire. That's a whole nother level. And I think we could get conditioned in society to be the people that want to get picked, and that's not the position of power most of the time. Most of the time it's the power is in saying, hey, I'm gonna get my own ball and I'm gonna start my own game and we're gonna go play.
Yeah. That's I mean, that resonates with me 100%. Just being, my journey stopped at Nevada, but that was the same thing for me. Like I wasn't picked. I wasn't a scholarship guy. I went and worked out with the team for 3 months before I met the head coach, good old Chris Tormey, right? And it was just an uphill grind. But what it taught me is that, like, once I achieved what I wanted to achieve and I ended up having success there and playing and doing all of that, it was like, well, shit, like I can do anything, right? Like I can go create. And since then, it's like anything I've really wanted to go after in my life, I've had full confidence, like I'll make this work, right? I'll make this work because I've been down that path. So what you're saying there, that totally, I that's me, right? I created a video called The Walk-On Mentality, kind of talking about my journey of being a walk-on. And it's the same thing as what you're saying is like, I wasn't never picked, right? Yep. The most I ever got picked by Nevada was like 2 weeks ago. They invited me to come back to speak to the team. I don't know how.
That's big.
Irrelevant, you know what I'm saying? But it was the first time the university ever picked me. I was like, right on, I'll go do this, right? But yeah, man, I think that's such a big power play too, is when you realize that I don't need you to choose me. Like you said, when I can be the chooser and I can really choose who I want to work with and not, it's just such a more powerful place to be in.
And another thing I learned, Donnie, is, no relationship is dead, right? Like, so a lot of the companies that we connected with early on, we were just early, and so it didn't make sense. And then, a lot of times you got to have some receipts, right? Like you got to come back and show like, hey, we did this, we did that, we did this. And now things change. And so in this world, seeing is believing, And so a lot of times we get frustrated as entrepreneurs because like, I know this is great. I know this is awesome. But, why people are not biting is because you have to go accomplish something, and as you do that, you're going to start to see the tide turn. Like I said, we get more inbound now than we used to because we've done some things now. And so, I used to be frustrated, like, man, this is crazy. Like, we're doing all this work and, but after a while you get one and then you get two. Like I tell my 9-year-old, I say, you take one, you turn it into two. You take two, you turn it into four. You know what I'm saying? You take four and turn it into some more. You know what I'm saying? Like, just keep going. And so that's how it works.
Yep. No, I agree with that, man. Well, shoot, man. I really appreciate you being on here with me today. I mean, where can they connect with you, man?
Yeah. I mean, obviously social media, I'm everywhere, but I'm heavy on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I love the platform. Obviously is business focused. And that's my biggest platform, but I'm also on IG. We're Qwerkz app on IG. My personal brand on IG is Winning is a Lifestyle. I always have a saying, losing is a choice, but winning is a lifestyle. That's my thing. But those two platforms are a good place to connect with me for sure. And then Qwerkz.com, if you're interested to kind of see what we're about or how to even get in touch with us, Qwerkz.com for sure.
Awesome, man. Hey, before we go, can you, a lot of people are looking to have some success that you've had. What's one piece of advice you can give anybody that's listening to this right now?
Simple advice. You just got to keep putting the shots up. It's no way around it. We want to win, but the only way to win is to keep putting them shots up. And you're going to miss a lot. But the great thing is, in this game that we're playing of entrepreneurship and business, you don't have to make them all. You just have to make a couple, and you're going to be okay. So keep putting them shots up for sure.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate that. That's good advice. And man, thank you again for being here with me today. Everybody reach out to Corey on LinkedIn, Corey Jackson. He's also a member in the Facebook group here where we're watching live. So feel free to reach out to him, and Winning is a Lifestyle on Instagram. Corey, thank you so much for being here, man. Everybody else, we'll see you soon with our next interview.
Appreciate it.